Learning is very important in our lives. We spend years and years in school when we're young, to later, when we become adults, be encouraged to study even more. Knowledge is looked at as something that we should attempt to reach, digest, and develop from, striving to be able to pack as much information as you can into your brain. Because the more you know, the better, right? This constant pursuit of collecting information might always be in the back of our heads, whether we want it or not, or at least that's my intuition. But this endless staircase of seeking for knowledge and information isn't always healthy. Some people might fail their important exams. Some might be depressed. Some might be unaware and lost in their thoughts, just because it's too much for them to digest. So I'm wondering, why do we have to be filled with information all the time? Why is it bad to not know? I have a problem. Whether it's an essay for school that I'm writing, a lecture I'm participating in, an article that I read, a video that I watch, a podcast that I listen to, or even a conversation with a friend about a topic that I don't know that much about. I'm constantly surrounded by clusters of information, and sometimes it can feel overwhelming for me to process it all, because there's so much going on. Like, the more I read, the less I remember. And I think the reason I felt overwhelmed and generally stressed might be because of what school have taught me for like 12 years. That I should spend tons of hours of my life trying to get information to stick into my brain, whether I want it or not, whether I like it or not, whether it's a topic that seems interesting or math. Everything has to stay, because then I pass the tests and my life is complete, right? I've realized the only way for me to get stuff to stick for a longer period of time is to choose to learn something that is genuinely interesting, not just to pass a test or getting through the exams. No, it often stays because there's something that I'm actually interested in and that I constantly think about. I like to not know. I know it's kind of a weird statement, but yes, I do. And by that I mean, I think it's healthy to be able to accept and feel comfortable being the one who might ask the stupid question. The question that everyone else already know the answer to, or at least in my head. And to not feel ashamed if I might seem like an idiot in that moment. Because if you look at a wider perspective, it's close to impossible to be an expert in everything. Or at least you have to put in huge amounts of time and effort to just be able to scratch the surface in many areas. Therefore, I have no problem to accept that I might have no idea about 99% of everything that is going on around me in the world. But that doesn't matter, because I like to ask questions. I like to not know. When you free your mind from the idea that knowledge is everything, and accept that it's always changing, and that you don't have to keep an eye on everything that's going on around you. When you do that, life gets a lot more interesting. For example, let's say you follow everyone you know on social media, and you see what they're doing on a daily basis on those platforms. What might happen is, when you actually meet up, there's nothing left to talk about, because you already know what the person has been up to, more or less. But instead, let's say you have no clue what the same person has been doing this past month. Then the conversation gets a lot more interesting, because there's so much more to talk about. There's so many questions to ask and so many answers to be told, just because you didn't know. Maybe you see yourself as a smart person. Maybe you don't. But nonetheless, I think it's necessary to be able to see past that knowledge is just one of the building blocks in our lives. It's very important, but it's not everything. It's not the end of the world if there's something you don't have a single clue about. Instead, when that moment occurs, take a deep breath and ask that really stupid question you're thinking about in that moment. Because it might have been the same question everyone else in the room thought of, but couldn't accept asking, because they don't like the thought of not knowing. But you did. For me, knowledge looks like a tree. A tree is built from the roots and takes a lot of time to grow. But no matter how long it takes, the tree is never complete. It is always in change. Some trees lose their leaves before the winter, but if a tree has lost all of its leaves, it's because of what is happening around it. The leaves will grow again, and that way the tree will always be different each year.